Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So there's a couple updates in the Breonna Taylor case. 15 hours of audio has been released in that grand jury case. And if you've been following the show, you know it was released because one of the grand jurors had filed a complaint alleging that the attorney general in the case, a man named Daniel Cameron, hasn't been completely honest with the public. Well, now a second grand juror is said to be raising concerns about what took place in that case as well. This is according to a Louisville activist who alleges that he received a phone call this weekend regarding the juror whose name he's keeping confidential. And A.G. Cameron, who's a Republican, and that's important in this case, is now facing criticism for his handling of the case and the fact that he essentially led the public to believe that he's not responsible for the lack of charges against the officers who killed Taylor. So as you may or may not know, only one of the officers who was there that night was charged, but he was charged not for killing Taylor, but for shooting into the apartments of her neighbors. So no one was charged. No one was held responsible for her death. And Cameron also alleged that he walked jurors through the Kentucky state's homicide charges, but later he had to walk that statement back, and he admitted that he only suggested that the jurors indict the one officer for wanton endangerment, which was the one that was convicted of essentially shooting indiscriminately all over the place, and the bullets went into her neighbors' apartments. So the audio that they released is essentially just evidence about Taylor, the night of the incident, as well as the presentation of the evidence. What it doesn't include is the prosecutor's recommendations or the jury deliberation process. So here's what has been gleaned from these recordings so far. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, told investigators that he and Taylor heard loud banging, knocking at the door and loud banging, and that they were both yelling at the top of their lungs, screaming, "Who is it?" They were asking, "Who's there?" And they heard nothing. So they got out of bed and they began to approach the door, and that's when it burst open and practically came off the hinges. So he assumed that it was a break-in, and he fired a shot as almost like a warning. And that's when he and Taylor were just barraged with bullets. So he and Taylor fell to the floor. Even though they were both on the ground and he fired no additional shots, the police just continued firing. And as I said, it was at random into the darkness and in all directions. So Walker also told investigators that one of the cops said to him, "You're going to jail for the rest of your life," so threatening him. He also said he wasn't sure which cop said it, but one of the officers asked him, quote, "Were you hit by any bullets?" When Walker replied, "No," the cop said, "That's unfortunate." How out of line is that? Please, though, please tell me about those bad apples and how there's so many good cops again. Really? This is a man who's done nothing wrong. He was not the subject of their warrant. All he did was try to protect himself and his girlfriend. And this cop is basically saying, "Too bad we didn't shoot your ass." Are you kidding me? And when that came out, one of the jurors in the grand jury said, "That's inappropriate." Yeah, it is. Will the good cops please stand up? If you're out there, we'd like to see you. We'd like to hear from you about this kind of shit. We'd like to hear you step up and condemn this kind of stuff. You want us to believe there's good cops out there? Prove it. So, unlike traditional court cases, this is a real sticking point. Unlike traditional court cases where the jury hears testimony and reviews evidence from all sides in the matter, Grand juries only get to hear and see what the prosecutor presents to them. So that means that Attorney General Cameron could steer and manipulate the entire process. And legal experts are criticizing the fact that his office is refusing to release the portion of the audio that contains the prosecutor's recommendations. That would allow us to hear exactly what his office said, what they recommended, how it was phrased, whether or not they, slanted everything and really pushed them in a certain direction. So a law professor from the University of Louisville told the Washington Post that the decision was, quote, completely unacceptable. And he said, quote, it leaves unanswered the single most fundamental questions that have been raised: whether the grand jury had a genuine opportunity to consider more serious charges, and whether the attorney general was being candid when he said multiple times that the grand jury agreed with him that officers Mattingly and Cosgrove acted reasonably. If we don't know what the prosecutors recommended, and we don't know what the grand jury deliberated about, we know very little more than what we did yesterday. So yeah, we have no idea what took place after they presented their evidence. That's all. That's where it ends. And an attorney for Taylor's family also criticized the way the grand jury case was handled, saying, quote, grand jurors keep asking great questions, asking about clarification of facts, evidence, details. Instead of getting them answers, the evidence or the people with answers, prosecutors and witnesses simply say they don't know and imply it's not important. Not how this is supposed to go down. So yeah, you can hear in the recordings jurors asking for more information. They wanted more information. How can you make a decision of such monumental importance if you don't have all of your answers? If you don't have all of the facts, all of the details? It clearly shows that they were just trying to rush this thing through. They had no interest in seeking justice for Breonna Taylor. They just wanted to shut this thing down. They wanted to shut everybody up, stop any of the protests that were going on, and ram this thing through. And they thought, oh, it'll be all over. We'll just put it off on the jurors, make it look like they were the ones that made the bad decision, had nothing to do with us. Oh, a jury of your peers determined. No, this is like such a con job. And from the beginning, one major issue in question in this case has been whether or not the cops identified and announced themselves before they busted down the door. Because Kenneth Walker says, no, we did not hear them. As I said, that he and Taylor were both yelling, asking who it was, and that never once did they identify themselves. Now, you know how we would know that? If they had body cameras on. This is why it must be a nationally mandated requirement that all officers, regardless of the case, wear body cameras. But now what we know from these recordings and from other information is that 6 of Breonna Taylor's neighbors said they didn't hear the cops announce who they were, and that the first sound they heard was that of gunfire. And Attorney General Cameron has talked out of both sides of his mouth on many issues involving this case. He said, when he was explaining to the press what the findings were, what the determination was from the grand jury and the charges in the case, he said that one witness confirmed hearing the police identify themselves when he was at the complex. It was a man named Aaron Sarpy. He was there picking up his daughter from a babysitter. However, leaked audio from interviews that were conducted with Sarpy back in March and May proved that Sarpy said no such thing. And his lawyer confirmed that Sarpy said that police only identified themselves to him in passing while they were saying, go back inside. He wasn't saying they announced it to Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend. His lawyer said, quote, if people want to construe to mean that the police did it loud enough that the people inside can hear, so be it, but that's not his statement. So Cameron has misled the public in numerous ways, numerous times. And again, I go back to the fact he is a Republican. He can be seen in photo after photo with McConnell, with Trump, with a big smile on his face. He clearly wants in the club, and he'll clearly do whatever it takes, even if it means lying to the public, manipulating this case so that cops don't get in trouble, that no one goes to prison for murder, which is what they did. They murdered a 26-year-old girl who did nothing wrong. There was no reason for them to be at her apartment that night. The person they were looking for didn't live there, wasn't associated with her anymore. This is complete and utter bullshit. So I'll keep you guys posted if I hear more. I'm sure more is going to come out as people listen to more and more of these 15 hours of audio. But yeah, they need to allow these grand jurors to speak out. We need to hear from them directly, and we need to hear the rest of that audio. If they've done nothing wrong, then present the evidence. If they did nothing wrong in the way that they presented the case and the way that they presented the question as to who the jurors could and could not indict, let's hear it. And until I hear it, he is nothing more than a Republican hack who is so desperate to be accepted that he is willing to sell his soul literally to the devil that sits in the White House. That's where I stand. As always, like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.